Well, hello everyone out there in Vlogland. It's Saturday night. I actually got off a little bit earlier tonight than I did last night. Not much, but I'm not complaining. A few minutes is a few minutes. So today, I wanted to talk about some more education stuff. And I think I might have mentioned before that I wrote this essay some time ago. I don't know where the hell I'm going to publish it, but it was this essay that I wrote. I'm just trying to kind of wrap my head around school and education and the way people view it. I wrote this essay called The Three Big Lies in Education. And the three big lies are that school equals education, you can't play video games all day, and the law requires you to be in school. Because none of these things are true, but moreover, most people don't believe that they're true, but they say them. So, like, in the case of this first, school equals education, in the case of this first example, nobody believes that. I mean, everybody understands, I think, that what you do and do not do while you're in school matters. And for that matter, what you do and do not do while you're not in school matters, you know? Everything you do and don't do matters. And all of that stuff is important. And kids aren't out there learning and growing, or if they're not out there learning and growing, it's simply because they don't know how, because they lack the guidance. And over and over and over again, we tell kids you have to be in school because education is important. It's important that you have a good education. It's important that you have a foundation, you know. The problem is, kids that are getting an education, that are learning, are not asking why they should be in school. So there's an assumption there that seems to be, that's inherently false, and that is that kids just don't value their education. But the truth is, I would contend that most kids that struggle in school, that have problems in school, that drop out of school, do value their education. What's really interesting is how hard I've tried to help people see that, and the way that people just resist it. You know, one of the things that was sort of, popular or politically correct to do when I was a kid was to treat that like a choice. You know, if you went to somebody and said, I'm not learning, I'm not getting anything out of being here, I'm not growing. This experience is doing the opposite of that. It's shutting those things down. The thing to do was to treat that like a choice. Was to say, well, you need to decide that your education is important to you. You need to decide that you want to be learning and growing. And it's sort of a meaningless thing, that. I mean, you know, you can decide it all day long, but it doesn't matter if you're not taking any action. And again, it sort of baffled me as a kid. It's like, well, what does deciding have to do with it? What does wanting it have to do with it? You know, like, I'm not learning anything. I'm not getting anything out of being there. And I don't know what I can do differently, you know? And it's really important when a kid says that, when a kid has that problem, to, you know, even if you just kind of focus on one, you find maybe one problem that you can address and just deal with that. It's amazing how quickly, the minute you do that, you also begin to solve other problems. You know, it's kind of the reverse of the nothing exists in a vacuum argument. It's like, well, yeah, but if instead of trying to solve the whole problem at once, you just focus on one kind of piece of things, you know, like maybe your kids really struggle with homework or something, and so you just focus on that one thing, and you go from there. You know, it's not the whole piece of the puzzle, it doesn't solve the whole problem, but you just start there, and you solve that problem. Or maybe your kids, maybe they're mouthing off to their teachers, and so that's one problem you can immediately identify, and you just deal with that problem. You know, or maybe your kids are falling asleep in class, and so we're just going to deal with how do we make sure you're getting enough sleep that isn't happening to you, or make sure that you're eating well enough or exercising enough that those things aren't happening to you. Because all of these things matter. Everything you do matters, and everything you don't do matters. And everything that kids don't understand, and believe me, I mean, I'm 36 and there's a lot I don't understand. So it always baffled me as a kid that, like, at 13, I was supposed to understand the world. I was supposed to understand everything about it. And even when I admitted that I didn't, when I said I don't understand everything about the world, there is surely more to this than I understand. Again, people treated that like a choice instead of a reality. And I don't know, that was the most baffling thing to me. It still is. Because surely people understand that a kid who is sleeping through class and getting Fs and doesn't have friends and isn't involved in extracurricular activities is not getting the same education as a kid who is on the basketball team and getting straight A's and maybe doing some extracurricular activities, maybe is involved with student government. That kid is getting a better education, and it is because he is able to do those things, because he understands those things, because he's maybe more extroverted rather than introverted. These things matter. And how do you take somebody who is struggling in school, who is maybe a little introverted, maybe having problems, and turn him into somebody who isn't struggling in school? I don't know the answer, and I don't think anybody does, but we have to admit that showing up in school and saying, "Hi, everyone, I'm here," is not enough to get you an education. So anyway, that's the first lie. The second and most egregious is the video games lie, that you can't play video games all day. And I think this lie is particularly egregious because it implies one or both of two things. One is that if you weren't in school, your only other option would be to play video games all day, and or that despite the other options available to you, what you would do is play video games all day. And as a great many homeschoolers and unschoolers will tell you, playing video games all day is not really a thing that, even if they could do, that they want to do. And maybe they do once in a while, but, it's generally not what people do. Because there are all kinds of other things you can do. There are all kinds of other ways you can learn. There's all kinds of, alternative schools and online schools and independent study programs. And, there's colleges and universities and private schools, and private schools kind of range the spectrum from, really conservative and really uptight to really liberal and really open, and same with charter schools. Charter schools are the same way. So these are all things you can do. And as, again, a lot of unschoolers will tell you, you can hang out at the library, you can go see plays and lectures, and you can sit in on college classes, and you can go to the junkyard and buy stuff and take it apart and try to put it back together, and you can grow vegetables in your backyard, and you can volunteer at various jobs to just kind of try them out and see if you like them. You can read to kids at the library, or volunteer at the old folks home, or maybe there's a guy who owns his own garage, and you can go just do scut work for him and help him tinker around on cars a little bit and see if that's something you like. Maybe there's an office somewhere. That's a little harder. It's a little harder to get office work that way, but maybe there's an office somewhere that needs some part-time help or something, and you can just say, well, I'm willing to work just to learn. There's so much that you can go do. You can just be out in the world doing it. You can get on a bus and ride it just to see where it goes. None of these things involve playing video games all day. You can play video games all day. That's one of the things you can do, but you don't have to. And that's the thing that I wish, and that's why I think the video games lie bothers me so much. It's such a difficult thing, because and I know that a lot of I know that people get told that all the time, and so I'm hoping, and it's one of the reasons I'm talking about this, I'm hoping that somebody watching this video might be watching this and think, well, gee, I've been told that before, and what a horrible thing to say to somebody, especially in light of the fact that it is simply not true. You simply do not have to play video games all day, and there's so much more you can do. I really think that when kids do that, it's generally for lack of other options, for lack of imagination, for lack of guidance. And not to say there's anything wrong with playing video games. I love video games. Anybody who watches my vlogs knows I love video games. But there are other things. There are books you can read. There are plays you can watch, symphonies, concerts. There are so many things you can go out there and do and learn about and grow, and those things are all worth exploring. They're all worth doing, and yeah, maybe some days you need a break and you play video games all day, and that's fine. So that's one reason that I have so much trouble with that particular lie and with the way that it's just treated that way. So, real quick, before I get to my, I'm going to go to Subway here and get a sandwich and call it a night. But real quick, so the third thing I wanted to talk about on this video before I finish here is that third lie, and that is the law requires you to be in school. And that's probably the least egregious because there is at least some truth to it. I mean, every state has compulsory education laws on the books, and those laws, range from really, really conservative, like Texas has some pretty conservative compulsory education laws, pretty restrictive. It's kind of hard to do certain things. Or states like Utah, where the compulsory education laws are really, really liberal, and you can do just about any damn fool thing you want to do as long as you have your parents' permission and call it homeschooling. And one of the advantages to living in a state like Utah that has those liberal compulsory education laws is that if you're struggling in school, there is help available. It's not, they generally, if they see that you're making an effort, you're not going to just get sent to juvie. You can actually try to work with the school system, and a lot of times, especially now, this was less true when I was a kid, although the laws were the same. It was kind of the system was a little bit different, but if you're struggling with depression or whatever, that's a thing they'll try to help you with. If you're struggling with a learning disability, that's something they'll try to help you with. If you want to know what your options are, they're far more willing to talk about that now than they were when I was a kid. They're more willing to just talk about the things you can do in school. But much, much more to the point, it's really important that kids understand that compulsory education, whatever you think about it, and I'm not a big fan of it, as I think I've probably discussed that a little bit. I can't remember all the things I talk about. But in spite of compulsory education laws, you can get an education. You can go out and actually do something you might want to do. They're not really preventing you. You may have to go through your parents to do it, so that gets tricky. But at least you can blame your parents and not the school system. So anyway, I'm going to leave you with that, and I will not be around tomorrow because I don't work, but I will see you guys on Monday.